I haven't just lost sleep because of my anxiety surrounding generative AI. I've actually had panic attacks about it. At worst, I have intrusive thoughts where I picture my family and friends just dying in the street because the economy crashes and there are no jobs left. And at best, I worry about becoming redundant as a freelance writer. I've spent my whole career working in creative industries, and for the first time, I'm genuinely worried about having to start from scratch. I feel like my entire work experience and my passion could become obsolete, and it's really a hard thing to reason with. I've had some comments asking me if freelance writing is still a viable career path in 2026, and others asking me why I'm a freelance writer at all in the age of AI. And honestly, I've had those questions myself because let me be honest, this is something that deeply impacts me. I worry about it pretty much every day. And being a freelance writer for the past decade, I feel like there are ups and downs. Like, it depends on the economy and like algorithm changes and all of these things. Sometimes I'll get more work, sometimes I'll get less work, which is fine. I understand the ebbs and the flows of the industry. But the thing about being freelance is that if you do get made redundant, you're not on a payroll, so you don't get the same unemployment benefits or severance package, which adds to the anxiety. And that thing that people say about human centric art and obviously like human experience content will become more valuable in the age of AI. I believe that that is true. Even just like seeing comments on Facebook by family members that have clearly been AI generated is exhausting to me. And I think the more that AI content saturates the market, the more we will feel a pull back to obviously like human generated experiences. But that ideal doesn't pay my bills. And in my professional life, I've already had editors tell me that they have to lower my rate, or they're offering me a low rate with the expectation that I will use generative AI to kind of build up my articles. And I just find that to be so bleak. I can only imagine, and trust me, I do, what will happen as AI becomes more powerful, because it's like the call is already coming from inside the house in terms of freelance writing. But because I'm no stranger to anxiety, I'm trying to treat this the way that I do any other kind of anxiety, and it's by focusing on the things that I actually can control, at least while I can still control them. So this is what I'm doing to combat the AI anxiety the best that I can. So the first one, which should come as no surprise if you watched other videos of mine, but it's to control my finances. I'm still obviously trying to pay off debt, but I'm trying to do it as quickly as possible. And I feel like by tightening the purse strings and really focusing on first paying off debt and then investing, it makes me feel like more prepared if my income will suddenly take a dip. I often think about how great it would be if I had have just not gotten into debt at all and invested aggressively when the freelance writing industry was really booming. Like, if I could already be in like a coast fire position, that would really alleviate a lot of stress. But for now, I'm just paying off debt as quickly as I can and trying not to spend on unnecessary purchases. The second thing that I'm doing is trying to upskill as much as possible. So that looks like, for example, starting this YouTube channel and learning new skills that way. It's also learning new languages, basically working on the shadows of myself that I felt like I wouldn't be able to overcome. So I'm somebody who's very anxious, and freelance writing really worked well for me. I feel like I can just get into my like little gremlin mode and work away at my laptop and not have to go out and interact with anyone, which sounds sad, but it's really not. I feel like I've had a lot of great experiences like traveling as a freelance writer too. But my point is just upskilling both professionally and personally. So if I do have to make a career change that involves going somewhere in person or working in an office or whatever it might be, I will already have additional skills outside of freelance writing, and I will feel confident enough to take that on as needed. And that kind of leads into the next one, which I think is obvious. I've been exploring alternative career paths. I honestly didn't think I'd have to do this in my career time frame. I remember when I was an intern just starting out, I was interning at a fashion magazine, like a physical fashion magazine in Toronto. And this was only about, I'm aging myself here, 12 years ago, I want to say. And that was just when physical media was really shifting away to digital media, and people were not happy about it at that magazine. And I remember thinking, like, oh, I always wanted to work in a traditional magazine, but like digital publishing seems interesting too. And like I said, that was only 12 years ago, and digital publishing has changed so much. So I find it wild. I don't know. I guess I just thought that media would be something that would be kind of around forever. But now I'm trying to think of things that maybe I'd like to explore. But it is hard because I feel like with my AI anxiety, I try to think of it like the whole picture. So, like, if many jobs are becoming obsolete, then who will be spending money on the services or whatever it is in the fields that I want to pursue? So, like, if I pivoted from freelance writing to marketing, it's like, what will the marketing industry be like if nobody's able to buy the products that are being marketed to them? Or like something else I was looking into briefly was like UX design, which I thought was so interesting as somebody that enjoys like problem solving and also aesthetics and psychology. And then I reached out to some of my old colleagues who are in UX design now, and they said that they've already been let go and replaced with AI. So basically, I am just open to kind of like vibing it out and seeing what calls to me and what is realistic for the foreseeable future. So, one thing that I'm going to start doing with another freelance writer friend of mine is have office hours where we get together and kind of like brainstorm other business ideas that we might have in mind and like kind of workshop them together. Even if like these ideas don't go anywhere, it's still kind of like building the momentum of kind of like our other potential. I also have a master's degree in creative writing, which I got 2 years ago. Not my most smart financial decision, but I don't know. I'm still glad that I did it. But I feel like with that and with my passion for learning languages, I could also potentially get a teaching English as a foreign language diploma and maybe start teaching English. I know that a lot of people say that that doesn't have, it's not like the best paying job necessarily, but I do like the idea that I could sign up to something like Preply and still have like the freelance kind of like freedom of working when I want. So that is an option that I've been thinking about. And then I've also considered being a regular teacher, like a high school teacher or even a community college lecturer. I think with my master's degree, I can only lecture at the community college level. I couldn't be a professor at a university. But I feel like that could be interesting. And that's another reason why I'm really trying to put myself out there and overcome my anxiety, because right now I feel like standing up in front of a class and teaching is very anxiety inducing. But I do feel like I've overcome a lot in the past. So that is something that I would like to work on and maybe do in the future. I have this like visual, I've sent this to a couple of friends, where I'm basically like AI proofing my future by becoming Miss Norbury from Mean Girls. So I could be a high school teacher, I could run the mathletes, and I could bartend a couple of nights a week down at PJ Calamities. If you know, you know, Mean Girls forever. And then the other thing that I'm doing outside of kind of like workshopping potential career paths is actually learning about AI. So for a while, I was one of those people that was like basically boycotting it, like not wanting to know anything, not wanting to understand how it works. And I kind of feel like, as much as I would prefer it not to exist, it's here and it's a part of the future. So it's kind of like, if you can't beat them, join them situation. So I haven't made any moves yet to start learning about AI, but I did get, it's kind of creepy. As I was doing research for this video, I started getting ads about AI masterclasses. Like the actual masterclass brand has an AI, like a if you fear AI, take this course. So maybe something like that. I don't know. I also am really leaning into meditation and journaling. So, I've mentioned this in a few other videos. I use meditation to help with intrusive thoughts and general anxiety. And obviously, it helps for this AI anxiety too, especially when I get into like the doomsday kind of like intrusive thoughts of AI just taking over every single job and we're left with nothing. I find that doing a meditation in those moments has really helped calm me down. And then journaling as well. I journal every single day. I try to focus on gratitude and like the good things happening in my life, but I also make time to kind of journal about things that are bothering me or my fears. And then I find it helpful to be able to kind of track those thoughts and try not to feed them, but also just be aware when I might be in a moment of spiraling and I need to do more mindfulness activities. Another thing I'm doing is focusing on my community. I forget where I read this, but I read something about how when you feel overwhelmed by the state of the world, something that you can do to kind of like put yourself back in control is just focus on your own community, focus on a granular level of what's around you, and it helps. So for me, that looks like catching up with friends, especially friends who have a more positive outlook on life, spending time with friends' kids, just kind of like reminding myself that I have a lot. I have a big network and a lovely community, and that will always be there. I think it's important to like go to local events and just like touch grass, like cut the screen time and just enjoy things that are in person. And then the last thing I do, which might sound counterintuitive coming from a journalist, but I try not to read the sensationalized headlines and mainstream media coverage about AI progression and the future, because I think it's important to remember that these publications exist to make money, and the sensationalized kind of like fear-based headlines get people to click and get people riled up, and I think for the most part that's not really helpful. So I do try to stay informed, but I just try to not like let it take over my mindset, if that makes sense. I used to be like such a news dog, not just reading the news, but I would watch the news for like a couple of hours every day. I just like, I don't know why. I loved the news. I was like truly a grandpa in that situation, like just having the news playing in the background. But I do feel like there's a way to be an informed citizen and not let it take over your psyche, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying that I don't follow the news. I don't know what's going on politically or economically, but I just try to like set parameters around what I do and do not consume and how much of it I consume. And I feel like it does help a little bit. So yeah, that's how I'm handling my AI anxiety. I kind of feel like it does help me, but I definitely don't have all the answers. So if you are in a similar boat or you have similar concerns, I'd love to hear what you're doing in the comments, because it can be rough, honestly. I try not to let it affect me, but it definitely does. And it's harder when it's like your paycheck that's on the line, but also your creativity and your passion. I don't necessarily think that I have all of the solutions, but I do think I'm doing what I can to manage the anxiety and try to just like future proof my career and income as much as possible. Maybe I will never have to do a career pivot. Maybe I'll be able to be a writer until I retire, but who knows? We will see. Anyway, this is what I'm doing to combat my anxiety. And I would say it works like 50%. So let me know if you have tips. And if you watched this far, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.